document?
Welcome everybody to the City of Parker Planning Commission meeting, July 11th. Thank you for all being here. We'll get to audience participation here in a little bit. Terry, can I ask you to do our invocation?
Absolutely.
Outstanding.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day you've given us, and we thank you for the town that we live in, Lord. Lord, I want to thank you for all the fine men and women I've been able to serve with on this committee over the last few years. We pray that all the decisions we make will be good for everybody here in this town. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Terry. Jim?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Play ball. Donna, can I ask you to do our roll call? And
Yes,
thank you for filling in. We
Yes,
sure
sir.
do appreciate that.
Ms. Hutto?
Here.
Mr. Robichaud?
Here.
Mr. Stryker? Chairman Rega?
Here, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, Mr. Sloan, I have a question for you. I
Yes, sir.
watched the film, but I wasn't here on June 13th, so, but I think we probably have enough people to approve the minutes if I'm not allowed to vote. So I'll just ask you for
Well,
that,
you are allowed to vote on them.
even though I wasn't here.
That's
Okay, I read
correct.
through them and saw the video, so,
I have just one suggested change. It's page 2, third line, last word. The Florida statute actually has a list of manufacturing classifications, not industrial classifications. So just change the word industrial to manufacturing.
No.
Very
Page
good.
2, third
This
third
one?
line, last word.
page
Mhm.
2, third line, last word. Okay.
Okay.
Any other changes, Terry, Bev? Very good, good catch, Jim, appreciate it. Donna, is that okay? We can make that change?
I can make that change, yes, sir.
So can I ask for a motion then to approve the minutes with that change?
I move the minutes be adopted with changes.
A second.
Good. Donna, if we could get a
Yes, sir.
vote, please?
Ms. Hutto?
Yes.
Mr. Robichaud?
Yes.
Mr. Stryker?
Yes.
Chairman Rega?
Yes, thank you,
sir.
appreciate that. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your interest in the city's business. This is the time where you get an opportunity to tell us what's on your mind. Any questions, any thoughts you may have, anything not related to anything we're about ready to talk about. Now's the time to come on up, come to the podium if you would. Say your name, tell us what's on your mind.
Good evening. Name's Jay Muirhead, general contractor here. I've got some property on South Lakewood Drive. Mr. Rega, we've spoken on the phone kind of briefly about this, but the reason I'm here is I think Jamie is a clerk's
Yes.
Clark's name. She recommended that I just come to the meeting and present that I'm trying to get a variance on the lots and basically see if it's something that might be feasible before going through the whole process of going through an approval. So basically what the variance I'm trying to get is to not have to bring I have 2 houses that I'm planning to build there, not bringing those 1 foot above the crown of the road because of the slope of the land. They're on Martin Lake. The natural grade, it slopes away from South Lakewood to the lake. And I have to bring the pads up probably about 5 or 6 feet. And so the problem is that the neighboring houses, my concern is it's going to cause stormwater problems for the neighboring houses. So anyway, I'm just here to present that information, and I don't know if y'all can say.
Let me go ahead and fill in because we had this gentleman was asking about whether or not that's an absolute requirement. It sounds like he's in what they call a watershed area. Now, as we know, a watershed area is where the water very clearly, it routes itself down to an area where it's not going to cause flooding. So let's say, for example, you got the street here, and you've got a property here, and then you got a lake down here. That's a watershed area. And so if you're going to build a property here, you'd have to bring in a ton of load to do this, okay? And the state of Florida provides provisions in a watershed area where you don't necessarily have to do what this gentleman's asking to do. Which would be to bring in like thousands of yards of fill in order to put the house above the road. And it's because the water is gonna go somewhere. And if he does, and as we know, the LDRs are peppered with reason, whatever we do, we wanna make sure that we don't harm the people that are already there. So if he brings in that fill, it is likely that he would flood the other neighbors, and that wouldn't necessarily be necessary. So I think what we'd have to see, and what I recommended to you, is that you get an engineer to review exactly what you're trying to do. The structures you're talking about can be built so that the structure itself won't flood and won't interfere with the surrounding properties around you. And it makes sense, and that's what we're all about, something that'll make sense. That rule is generally because Florida is relatively flat, and we don't want the structures to be built, a builder to come in, build a structure, and then ultimately people buy those homes and those homes flood, and then your neighbors flood alongside of it. But in a watershed area, it's a different story, different entirely. So in that area, there are special provisions for building in that particular, on that piece of property with those kinds of elevation changes.
Okay.
But I do recommend you get an engineer to review it, put together some drawings. I think we'll have a better idea of what we can look at, and then what we would do is give our recommendations to the city council. And if it's what I think it is, and I think you said you had 30-foot elevation change between the road and the lake. Yeah, I mean, think about that. And it's not a big piece of property.
That's like a 45.
Yeah, so the water's all gonna be, as long as his property is built so it doesn't flood, which is what we're primarily concerned with, his property and then others that are around it, then I think we could probably
What's
offer
the
that
address
variance.
on South Lakewood?
It's 4819 and 4821.
A lot of that sits on the Martin Lake side, sits.
Keep in mind, Mr. Chair, that the council did enact updates to the floodplain ordinance provisions, and that those cannot be waived. So if he runs afoul of the floodplain provisions of the LDR, you cannot grant a variance for that.
That's right, because there are special provisions within the floodplain. I would still recommend what you do is, the city is very paranoid about flooding because it happens a lot. As a matter of fact, most of the standards that we've changed have actually brought up building to the 100-year, 24-hour rain event, which is about it anticipates another 2 inches of rain could happen, between the 25-year. I still think it probably makes sense to, is your area in a floodplain area? Is where you would build a home considered a floodplain?
No.
Yeah, so if he's in an X or an AE zone, he wouldn't actually be in a floodplain, which is what you're talking about, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so as long as you're in an X, which is, they're essentially saying that if you're in an X or an AE is a little different. You could flood with every 25 years. X says it's unlikely you'd flood within 100 years. If you're in those two areas, you're not considered to be in a flood zone. And then what our city attorney is saying is, you could still get an engineer that says, this is how we anticipate building it. Property is not gonna flood, it's not gonna affect our neighbors, and then we could talk about that. What he's talking about is if it's actually in a floodplain, then we have powers beyond our ability, which come from the state, that dictate that it'd be difficult for you to build. But I think you're okay, as long as check your survey, make sure you're in an X or an AE or above designation, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
I have a question, if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
mind. It slopes from the road down. You were going to build a pad of some height at the front line of the building, front building line?
Correct. I'm gonna bring it up some because it needs to, just for water runoff doesn't go,
Right, well, okay, so, an addition of another foot is not gonna affect the flooding issue with your neighbors, but that's not really my question. My question, my suggestion, and I don't wanna get into designing your house, I would recommend you look at putting it on piers, pilings, which completely obviates the flooding issue. And it might even be cheaper than bringing in a jillion yards of fill.
Okay,
It's a viable solution around here. The water just goes underneath. It's like there's nothing there. You really didn't change any of the water course if you do something like that.
Good
yes,
suggestion,
sir.
Jim.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
But you,
The
and you
whole-
might find out it's cheaper to do it that way. I don't know
Yeah.
if the house will, I don't know what kind of house you're planning on putting up, but my house is on pilings and it does just fine.
Okay, thank you for that, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay.
But get an engineer to actually look at it. They're gonna do a few other things too. They'll take soil samples. Most of what we've got around here is Mandarin sand. That perks pretty good. But you still want somebody to look at it, do a couple of perk tests, make sure that you've got great runoff. They'll give you something called R and Q values, which talk about how fast the water saturates and then runs off that property. That's really what they will look at. And then we'll get a chance to see that math. And then as long as it's not in a flood zone, as Mr. Sloan said, then we could recommend probably to the council members that it's a project worth building.
Okay. I'm actually been talking to an engineers and they kind of agree, they think it's, so.
Yeah, like I say, what you described to me puts you in a unique area. If you actually did what the ruling would say, then your home would be, it'd look funny, 40 foot of dirt, put on top of a house, you'd have to climb a hill before you got to it. And there are reasons why there are certain exceptions to that.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, council, appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rich Whitaker. I'm here to get a provision for me to build a building on my property.
And full disclosure, everybody, this gentleman is the brother of a very good friend of mine, so I probably have to abstain from any voting.
Well, unless there's a financial impact for you, then you wouldn't abstain.
Excellent, very good.
So I used to own Shooters, a pool hall on Highway 22, and also Players on 23rd. I don't have either place anymore, so I'm trying to build basically a pool hall in my backyard for me to have a pool table. And I play on an official size, which is a 9-foot table and a 10-foot table. So you need 5 feet around all the way around. My property line from the edge of my house to my property line is 25 feet. I need the building to be 20 feet so that I have enough room to play pool all the way around it. The provision is, or the actual ruling is 5 feet from your property line. I need to build 3 feet from my property line, basically, so I'm not butted up against my house.
Rich,
the
let me
building.
understand something. So how big is the building gonna be?
25 by 30. I don't know, I'm sorry, 20 by 30. 20 by 30.
And it's how far from the principal structure?
Well, right now it's not built or anything, but from the edge of my house to my edge of my property line is 25 feet.
Okay.
If the building's 20, yes, I have 5 feet, but I would be right up against my house. I want to be able to walk between that building and my house to do mowing and, in case I have to replace a window on my house or something like that.
Let me tell you a little bit of a hitch in to get along here. So fire code says that the buildings have to be 10 feet apart. Here's why. Fires jump, and what ends up happening is so if you have a principal structure and then you have another structure within 10 feet of that, the fire code doesn't allow us to do that. Interesting, however, though, if you attach them to the principal structure, it's a horse of a different color. So the LDRs ultimately say you would need the principal structure. You'd need 10 feet from the principal structure. Okay, so for example, if you got the wall of eaves don't matter. So if you got the wall of a home and you got an eave sticking over 2 feet, that's fine. Okay, but it'd be the wall of the home to the pole of your carport. That's where the 10 feet's measured. Okay, so they could have eaves. However, you have that, and that's a safety code consideration. That comes to us from recommendations from our own fire department and others. However, like I say, if you would redesign it so that you could attach it to your principal structure, that would give you the 5 feet you needed against your property line.
Yeah, then I wouldn't need anything.
Then
But
you
I don't
would-
wanna
it wouldn't
attach
be a
it to my
variance.
main house, because then now I have to pay a different insurance for my house, and it adds square footage, and I have to get the
Not for a
roof and all
carport.
that. It's
Not-
not a carport, it's a
an
building.
enclosed
It's
Oh,
an
just an enclosed building, I see.
Yeah,
It's an accessory structure.
Accessory structure, okay.
yeah.
I-
But
I
that 10
caution
feet-
the planning commission on giving basically prospective guidance on something that you don't have in writing.
It's in the LDRs.
You know,
His petition
Is not, yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
drawings on anything.
we don't,
Yeah.
you don't have anything in front of you,
Yeah.
so.
And he brings up a good point. So I'm
The-
giving
the-
you
the-
what the LDRs are.
Yeah, the
So,
10 feet
um,
thing is, I mean, there's no possible way that could happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've already built other structures, like I built a pump house that's not within 10 feet of my house. To have a well and all that stuff. I put another shed up that's not within 10 feet of my house.
Yeah.
So the 10-foot thing, I don't know where that's coming from or whatever, but there's no possible way. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't put a structure anywhere on my property if I had to go 10 feet from my house before
It's-
I could start building.
It's there for safety concerns because fires jump, and that's why it's in place. You know, if it's another structure, it's gotta be 10 feet. That's just the rules, and it's designed to protect people.
Well, how did my other structures get approved then?
It was probably before, you know, fire departments determined that these fires jump and cause a problem. I mean,
Okay.
and it
All
might have
right.
been, now here's something that, now, if you've got a structure that's already there, that's called a legal non-conforming structure. That can actually remain. It's not, nobody's gonna make you take it down, as long as it was there prior to the rules were set up and it was properly built with a permit and
It's
everything.
been there since I bought the house 18 years ago.
Yeah,
So
then
I can
it's-
build off of that then.
I think what we should do is really put together a picture and show, it's that you can't build off of that, because the rules around legal non-conforming structures say you can't add to the level of non-conformity. So if you've got, for example, a 20-foot by 20-foot shed, and it's within just a few feet of the property line, you have the right to maintain it, repair it, but you can't add to the level of nonconformity by making it bigger.
Okay. All right, appreciate you guys' time.
And look at it again. I mean, there may be another place where you can put it. There may be some other things that you can do, but that's,
Okay.
thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Hey, Pat, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How about you?
I'm well,
Pat
and
Klosik,
thank you.
1344 Stratford Avenue. Just a couple questions. Curiosity more than anything else, I guess. Let me, and I wrote these in a different order, and I'll be within my 3 minutes, I'm hoping. Thank you. What's the process for the business or developer? Let me sort of toss that out there. It sounds like, from what I've been able to discern, the resident property owner completes an application. They go to the plant internal in City Hall to get the application approved, find out all the other forms that they need to do, and then the development order comes before the Planning Commission. At what point does it go to Anchor? Does it always go to Anchor, or does it depend on what it is?
If it's a minor if it's de minimis, it doesn't come before anybody. It just gets built.
Oh, okay. And
if-
that's in the, I think that's in the LDRs, because I've read that.
Is exactly right.
Okay.
That's gonna probably.
Let's say that it has to come before, though.
I think that's gonna be in section 5, actually.
Yeah.
Section 5, yeah.
Believe it or not, I
Development
have read
standards.
that, the whole thing.
Outstanding. So, you know, there are 3 different developments, de minimis, which are generally if you're painting, if you're repairing within the structure of your current home, there's no building permit required, there's
Yeah.
no overview. If you're landscaping, there's no overview. If you're building a trellis, there's no overview,
Right.
that kind of thing. Then there's the minor. If there are no variances requested on a minor development, it goes to our city clerk. It doesn't even come to the planning
Okay.
commission. Those are gonna be single-family homes, like Mr. Lumley recently built. His home never had to come before us because there are no variances, and it's a single-family dwelling.
Okay,
So it went right to our city clerk for approval.
okay,
If it is a major development, it comes before the planning commission. If there are any variances, it comes before the planning commission. And then the actual steps necessary to take are actually outlined in Article 6 under Development Review and Procedures.
Okay, okay, I'll read that. I'll go back and read it again.
Cool.
Okay,
And-
so,
Yeah.
that being said, and based upon what's happened recently at the last 2 or 3 planning commission meetings as well as city council, obviously we've got the Santora property and the Patel property coming along. Have we heard anything, or has the planning commission received any applications? Would those applications come before the planning commission?
Once the planning commission turns it over to the council, and I think the council approved the Quality Inn, right?
Patel,
Everything.
yes, they did.
Yeah, then it's off our desk at that point.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's off the planning, unless they come back with variances or a change in the building requirements.
So the fact that they're building within the same footprint negates that requirement?
The
What-
fact that
other
they're
than some
building,
other variances.
it comes under that same thing we were talking to that gentleman about, under legal non-conforming structures.
Got it.
Because they have an engineer that identified that property was not destroyed more than 50%, it's considered a legal non-conforming structure.
Okay.
Even though the LDRs have changed.
Okay,
So they have the right to rebuild it back in that same footprint.
got it. Okay, so that doesn't come back, but Santora's would.
When they get ready, if they
We've
get.
never
Wait, yeah, exactly. I'm just, and
Yeah.
again, because, again, it was a big hubbub and now crickets, even. But-
We have not voted on his development order.
No, we haven't,
He can't
Right.
do anything right now anyway.
for
No.
many
The
reasons.
the
If I-
And
application
that's
has
why I'm
not
wondering.
come before the planning commission,
Yeah.
and it's still being reviewed by the engineer.
Okay,
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think the only thing that came before us is, were we willing to go ahead and change those other
the
properties?
LDR.
Yeah, the other
Or,
properties
sorry, the
over to
land use
commercial.
designation,
That's
yes.
exactly right.
Okay.
It was just a zoning request, that's right.
And then lastly, 2, Culvers, we've been hearing about it now for some time. So would that come before the planning commission?
Yes.
It would,
Okay, thank you.
because it's gonna be a major development.
Okay. So we have something from them? Oh, good. See, that's the thing. I'm curious, for those of you that get on social media, there's been a lot of hubbub about Culvers. We've heard that from the mayor. Wawa's now coming, but yet Trustmark is still there. I just like to point out that even a city employee posted on one of the social media sites, it'd be good if we could talk about the positive things instead of some of us complaining and asking questions all the time. Well, that's what I'm here for, is to say it would be wonderful to know that the Culvers is in progress. Wawa, it may be that they haven't even bought the property yet. I don't know. And I don't know what we're entitled to know. But just to open up the dialogue to recognize what you guys are doing, that the city is growing, that there are things coming to be that are going to be improving Parker. I mean, I think there's benefit from that,
I agree with you.
and
There's-
not
there's-
necessarily just coming to a meeting. And then lastly, the same thing with Parkway Gardens. I know we had that request for the laydown yard. That was denied. It's cleaned up, but from what Ms. Galbraith had said some time ago, it may be another 3 to 5 years before they even begin to rebuild there.
Yeah.
Okay.
that's
Thank you
right.
for your time. I appreciate the
No,
indulgence.
thank you. Appreciate your good comments. How are you, sir?
How y'all doing? I'm Eddie Ray Eanes at 6901 Hugh Drive. That's actually in Callaway. I'm interested in reopening the old Coach and Four building restaurant. I grew up here my whole life. My dad was a shrimper and went to school in Rutherford. And anyway, I'm a bar restaurant guy. I used to have Stetsons and a bar on the beach in Nashville. So I'm very, to that, I keep a boat behind Pier 98 rodeos, and so I'm about to starve to death in Parker. We need some restaurants. Need something to eat, When you leave Tyndall Air Force Base, come over there. Can't get a shrimp basket, can't have a drink, So we need something going on. And my connections to Nashville and here in the Keys is just unbelievable. And the people ask me all the time, Eddie, they want me on the beach, want me back in the Keys, but I like to be here. This is my home, And I just done a lot of stuff for Randy Hunt, and wouldn't it be nice to put something like a Hunt's atmosphere in that building, And that's what I'd love to do. So I seen it was for sale. Corey's a good friend of mine, Jason Oaks. I do a lot with him, and they were kind of, they didn't know the Parker thing. I said, well, I'm from there. I'll go down and talk to them.
It's a restaurant right now? Eddie?
It was,
a long time ago.
right. It was there for like The coaching for building right down on the left by the bridge.
Or would
there's a
have to
bar-
comply with the
It
current
used to be
LDR
the
requirements.
boneyard.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
this other
Yeah, I
mess,
can-
but it's
The bone, yeah, the
right
bone,
across from the Thai restaurant.
yeah, the boneyard kind of destroyed the whole image of that thing. My dad, it was a really good place. Remember, you ate sherbet before you had the steak and all. The water view was a really nice place to go for military. My dad raised me here, and even at rodeos, that was an officers club at one time. And you go in and dance and stuff. Even the kids could go in there. And the Nala Murata, I mean, it's just a classy place. There's nothing wrong with having a steak and something to drink and having your kids in there too. It's kind of a fun, family thing. But Parker really, in Nashville, they didn't do anything. I have a big place there, 5 floors, and they come every week. Say, Eddie, get involved with this. And usually it means just give them a check. But I'd put my 2 cents in, and sometimes I could help them. But I'm involved with a lot of people that they think I'm real smart at a lot of things, and I am. And a lot of people, for example, Finn's restaurant. I don't know if y'all, he's a good friend, but the ones I'm really interested in is the Cajun place on the beach and Andy's Flower Power. These people are very successful. It'd be nice to get them on this side of town, because St. Joe Company and all this money is on this side of town is just horrible when it comes to eating.
It's ready to explode in terms of.
Well, I've been here my whole life, and not one time somebody asked me or talked about it. And all the business people I know, so.
Just to make sure that you understand, even though that building was a restaurant some time ago, it would have to comply with all of the current LDRs right now.
Right. Well, it's mixed use
however,
too. That's the issue.
Mixed use too. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And that was a big problem. See, in any city I've been in, they go right in and say, "Hey, this whole rezone everything, that whole side of that street from that park all the way to the bridge. Why isn't it zoned, bar, restaurant, or whatever?" And make that property people's property. Like there's a trailer park, then there's a boat place, then there's an empty lot. You do these people a world of justice to zone it where restaurants and bars can exist, and that whole thing, that trailer park would be knocked out. Somebody like me would go in and buy it. And the lady that owns the property has like 2.5 acres. I think she's wanting to put a brewery on it. We could bring a group of people in there and take it all out. And that's what you need to do. And I'll go door to door and talk to all them people. I just did East Bay Preserving Yacht Club a few years ago at the end of Bertha Avenue. It was 15 acres. I turned it into 18 lots. And it was a nightmare, for me to do it. But I got it done, and did well and ended up moving to the Keys. But I'm back here. This is my home, and I'd like to do stuff here.
Ask these fellows. Let me grab some brain power here. So MU2 bars and restaurants cannot exist. I don't remember that. I thought they could too as well.
Looking through it right now, it's silent on that subject.
Eddie, let me just ask you a question. Why do you think it's prohibited? Because I don't think it is in an MU2.
There's some issues because the guy that represents the property, Jason Oakes, and they said, "Eddie, we can't do anything to the city." I said, "What do you mean?" I looked at it. It says you can go 120 feet on that. It looks like you can do whatever, but I think there's a water issue maybe with maybe sprinkling the building sometimes when you have 150 seats. The last restaurants I did, you got to sprinkle, which I could do that financially. But if it whatever it needs to do. If it can exist, I'd like to go back and recreate that atmosphere.
I wonder if it has to do with the fact that we're trying to loop the water system down that side of the road, and we're coming up against opposition to do it.
I see. Okay.
As a city, not myself.
Well, there's a fire hydrant not far from there, so I can tap into it.
What they're trying to do is
There's
a
nothing
larger
you
pipe
can
down
do
that
at this
side
Right.
Mr.
to
Chair.
actually offer better pressure.
There's really nothing
I got
you
you.
Which
can
would
do
then
other
give
than
better
listen to the
pressure
fellow at
throughout
this
the
point.
whole. So,
What-
I don't know if that's.
Is there a
what
plan?
gentleman's
Is there a
talking
way that
about.
you could, from what I understand, that the Thai restaurant, I think, is relocating it. So you're gonna have that empty building. There's an empty gas station. There's a lot of little buildings, that could be such cute restaurants that people own, that are mom and pop. That's what this city needs, is people that care about it. That we need a meat and vegetable place. We need something to eat. We don't need more Applebee's. No more of that stuff. Look what they're doing to St. Andrews right now, to Hunt's, building over top of it. It's ridiculous. Let's get some stuff in here, man. It'd be so easy to get the zoning right. So yeah, y'all want you to come in here.
Eddie, here's the good news. In terms of the style of business, I don't see anything in MU2 that would preclude a restaurant and a bar from occurring. But it sounds like you're also talking about, the building standards related to fire retardants and sprinkling and things of that nature. Those things would have to be up to code.
Yeah.
That's a safety issue, and we really can't.
Well, the owner and it was having issues. I don't know what the issue is, because somebody like me can go right in and do what I need to do, and they wanted me to come in here. I don't even know why. I was hoping that she'd be here, but I couldn't get Jason to come.
Yeah.
But I want.
But in terms of the style of business, there are many restaurants in along that pathway right there.
So she's talking about maybe putting a brewery on the other part. Piece, she got 2-point-something acres down the road. Maybe I can talk to her about that possibly too. So.
Oh, I think I know the property you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, big beautiful piece of property.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
I don't-
priced right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think at this
Okay.
time that there's any restrictions,
Okay.
in terms of the area, the way that it's a district, in terms of having that style of a business. And when you get to a part where you're actually gonna be creating plans,
Right.
obviously the size of the buildings, the setbacks from the
Yeah.
road, fire retention,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things are gonna have to be, the number of parking spaces based
Yeah.
on the number of people you can have in the building, all of those things are in the LDR.
Right.
But those are the kinds of things you're gonna wanna comply with anyway, because
Right.
they're generally designed for positive purposes.
Right. So what's my next step? So do I get on the planning thing for the next thing, or I was going to get it under contract?
I think what I would do is, I would draw some plans up in terms of what your intent is for the building.
For
area.
development order, is that what? pretty much
Yeah,
what
I
need
would
to do?
draw some plans up.
Okay.
And then ultimately know exactly what you wanna build.
Okay.
Is it gonna be a bar, is it gonna be a restaurant?
Yeah, restaurant.
What you're gonna do with that building.
Okay.
For example, are you planning on expanding the building?
It's
I would-
4,000 square feet and it holds about 150 people, and that's perfect.
Okay.
For the,
I
start.
I would look at chapter 6, which are your development and review standards.
Yeah.
But again, all of these things are really designed
Okay.
for safety purposes and to, allow the city of Parker to flourish.
But y'all would
I don't-
welcome a restaurant in there, and that's
Oh
what
my
we're
God,
after.
I think we
Okay.
all would, sure.
All right, so I'm pretty
I
serious
mean,
about it. Yeah.
But I think you have to put together the plans.
Yeah, no problem.
But I don't see anything in the fact that it's a district of MU2, I don't see anything in here that says bars and restaurants
Okay.
can't be there. That just doesn't exist.
Well, I appreciate y'all's time, and if the other places I'm interested in doing too, and but they are a little smaller, and you couldn't put in parking lots and runoff and stuff, and I think the city's really going to have to come to that terms and say, hey man, we're never going to get any restaurant people in here. Nobody's going to come in here and spend millions of dollars to go in here and feed these people. Mom and pops want to get something that's was running. They come right in and put some groceries in there with what money they have. So I mean, really got to look at it if y'all want something. If not, it's the same rundown building, same broke down stuff. I'm burnt out on Applebee's and all that stuff. And you got somebody in front of you right now can do something. If y'all would work with everybody. But hey, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eddie.
Okay,
Thanks for
appreciate it.
trying to help the city. We appreciate you. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Anything else you want to bring to this planning commission group? All right, let's move on. All right, we're past items for the audience. All right, the first one is a request we have, let's see, is it a Mr. Lynn, variance request for 5200 Sewell Drive?
Yes, sir.
You, Mr. Lynn, please come on forward, sir, and tell us, if you don't mind, just give us your name and where you live, and then tell us a little bit about your project.
My name's Marty Lynn. I live in Atlanta or Grayson, Georgia, but we're trying to get moved down here if we can get this place fixed, kind of like we want it, so it'll fit us all. So that's my goal, is to, I'm sure you've seen the pictures where it's got the little lean-to carport off the front.
Yeah.
I'd like to change that and put a regular garage.
That's building A, structure A.
I think it's, yes, it's the one on the
It's
front of
designated as
front of the house.
I don't think I got what you had.
It's it was the survey that came with it. Jim, did you get a copy of that? Yeah, Beth, how about you?
Yeah, it's in our email.
He's gonna,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Mr. Lynn, if you don't mind, kind of start with just an overview of what you want to do here, and then that way, it looks like everybody didn't get everything that they needed to, if you don't
Okay,
mind.
that's
Just kind
fine.
of describe it.
Basically, I got an easement of Ethlyn right next door to me. Ethlyn Road. It dead ends right in front of my house, or comes down the side, and it's not like your typical streets that you see throughout the community that's paved pretty much down to the water line or whatever. This one's all grown up and got trees and grass and whatever in it. So, of course, we got gravel over on the easement, and we're kind of using it now. So I'm wanting to pull all that back over closer to the house and move the driveway on my side, you know, on the side that we should be on. And to get a garage, you know, to get a 2-car garage, you got to have at least 22 or 24 feet to put 2 cars in there. And what I'm doing is I'm going to be encroaching on the setback on the road on Soul Drive, like 3 feet, 3 maybe 4 feet, if I do it how I'm asking.
Are
So-
you on the setback or?
Yes, I
You know,
believe.
because we've got the right of, nothing we can do about the right of way because.
No,
the
I'm not
state
in the right of way.
The state of
It's-
Florida dictates that that's gonna be 50 feet, so essentially 25 feet from the center of the road
Right.
out. And then the city of Parker requests that a structure like that be 20 feet from the edge, from that
Right.
line of the right of way
I'll
up to
be
your
I'll
building.
be 15.58, I think is what it is. This is a different drawing than what you're looking at. This one's just something different. But yeah, I think it's 15.8. So I'd be, you know, like 4 feet closer to get it to the 24 feet there.
So how far will you be from the actual right-of-way?
The actual right of way, it says on that.
Not the road, the right-of-way.
Right, the right of way. It's like 15.58, I believe.
I'm thinking I'm seeing that, Mr. Sloan, 15.58. So that arrow that's on that survey right there, the 15.58, that's from the right of way?
Right of way,
Okay.
yes.
It's from the
Yes,
edge of
sir.
the right of way,
Uh-huh.
okay. So you're really, I got it, okay.
So yeah, I mean, y'all's the requirement for the city's 20, so I'd be 15.58 from it on that perspective.
All right, well, he did fill out his variance request, and I'm not sure he was aware of how he was answering it, but,
I might
you're
not have.
required to go through that variance test, after you all have any discussion.
Any thoughts? Terry, so he's asking essentially to build so there's a carport right now, and that carport is 13 feet wide.
Yes, sir.
And that's attached to the house, and it looks like you want to build another 11 foot on there.
Basically,
yeah,
but-
11 foot,
but not-
24 foot. So really, you're just asking to encroach in on your property essentially, but just 15. You want the setback to be 15.58 as opposed to the full
Right.
20 feet.
Right, yes, sir. But,
Is number 2 a separate building?
yes, yes, sir. That was what I was gonna go into next after we discuss this
So
one.
you have 2 requests.
Yes, sir. Mhm. One is for the front, you know, for the front garage, and just let me add that I won't be adding on to the lean-to type shed that's there now. I'll take that completely off and build a gable garage, you know, like a standard, so it looks like it was built with the house instead of just added on to.
And that structure would be, when that structure's done, it would be 24 by 24, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've thrown the idea of 22 by 24, but definitely 24 out from the house.
Okay, okay. The application shows it as 24 by 24.
Yes.
And then the survey shows it as 22 by 24, so.
Right.
We need to see that, but that wouldn't affect
No,
what you're
that wouldn't
talking
affect
about because that's 22 feet.
Right, that's right. It just matters on how close. I don't want to get too close to my front door, you know, if we do it, so.
So you'd rip what the structure that's down, new footings, all
Right,
of that stuff?
right,
yeah.
absolutely.
Jim, any thoughts about infringing on the setback by 4.5 feet?
Straightforward, four, not quite a half a feet of infringement, then it would require a variance.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward, cut and dry
Yeah.
for that one thing.
Yeah, and I think we should handle it separately, look at this one and then look at the second one.
Okay.
Bev, Terry, any thoughts about,
I mean, I think it's your property and, you know, I understand we have rules for reasons, but that sounds reasonable to me.
yeah, I mean, he's gonna improve the neighborhood
Right.
and, you know, I need to make sure that you know, Mr. Lynn, that we'll review this from a technical standpoint. And then
Absolutely.
our word is not the final word.
Right.
It's just a recommendation that goes to the city council.
Right.
Have anything else you want to tell us about that building A, that structure there?
No, sir. I mean, other than, you know, I just want to make it look better and more usable, so we can park 2 cars in there.
Yeah, I get that. And again, we're talking about 4.5 feet, so that, anybody know how wide the actual road is there? I know that the right of way is 50 feet. That road's,
60 feet right away.
Yeah, it's a 60-foot right of way. I'm not
oh,
sure.
that's
I can
a
measure.
60-foot right of way?
It is.
So you're,
Mm-hmm. It's what the survey says. I'm not sure exactly.
That's why.
Yeah, it is.
okay. So there's no way that road is more than 25 feet wide. So okay. So
Yeah.
there's a lot.
He's gonna be way back.
I looked
Yeah.
at the picture and I thought,
I
I was using 50 foot as the mechanism.
You'd be back from the road.
I'm not sure. Do you want to look at this plan? It's a little different than that one. It actually shows the curve here. So, you know, we're a long ways from the curve,
Yeah.
and that's the center line of the road. So
And this is the right of way.
that's the right of way. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if that's 60 foot right away. I think it's 50 foot right away at Sewell. That's a
Well,
residential
I
road.
assume the surveyor knew what he was doing when he surveyed it and
Yeah.
marked it as a 60-foot right-of-way.
I've
can't-
got 2 different surveyors. One, the first one, the original surveyor that did it, when we bought the place, he passed away. So I got in touch with another outfit and they did it. And both of them has got 60-foot, you know,
They
right
do,
away.
okay.
So
Matt
Well, look at
probably
the
is.
property appraiser website, the lines are so far off. I mean,
yeah,
his
They all-
property line comes through his house.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
That's right.
It doesn't make any sense. Well,
That was no.
my 2 cents, since that right of way is wider than I think most of us thought it was, since he's still gonna have a lot of distance between the front of the new structure and the edge of the road, and it's a residential street. Nobody's doing 80 miles an hour down here.
No.
I think I'm ready to vote on project A.
Well, you have to go, I recommend you go through the variance test that the
Yeah.
council
Let's
is
do
gonna
that.
go through
Let's
that.
go ahead and do that. Now, I
And
do need you to know, Mr. Lynn, I think you probably thought that these were designed to be, answered no, but let me, Mr. Sloan, let me ask you to conduct these, because you know these better than us here. So the question is, number 1, there are extreme practical or economic difficulties in carrying out the strict letter of the land development regulations.
And actually, that's been amended, if you remember. We now have 7 variance
And
tests.
since we don't actually have those, can I ask you to
Yes,
ask
sir.
those questions? What we're gonna do, Mr. Lynn,
They were on page 6-12, section 6-3.3. And again, remember, ultimately, the applicant bears the burden of proof and persuasion by clear and convincing evidence of each of the following: that there is a specific hardship affecting the development of the property, resulting in the strict application of the provisions of the regulations. That's 1. Number 2, the hardship is not a result of actions of the owner and is not based solely on a desire to reduce development cost. Number 3, the proposed variance is necessary to preserve a substantial property right where such property right is generally available to other property owners of adjacent or nearby properties or other properties in the land use category. and I don't know what land use category, what,
It's residential.
is this residential?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, low density
The
residential.
proposed variance will not materially increase congestion on surrounding streets, increase the danger of fire or other hazard, or otherwise be detrimental to the health, safety, or general welfare of the public. Number 5, the proposed variance will be compatible with adjacent and nearby development and will not alter the essential character of the land use district. Number 6, the effect of the proposed variance is consistent with the purposes of the regulations. And 7, the effect of the proposed variance is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So those are the requirements that have to be proved by the applicant by clear and convincing evidence.
When did you filled this out on 6/12? I think what they did is they probably gave you they didn't give you the updated version of that.
Oh, okay.
That said, I guess I'm entertaining a motion for Project A.
Can we have public comment?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, please.
I just have Pat Posick, 1344 Stratford. You're gonna remember that address. I just have a question based upon the photograph, and I drove by the property. I'm familiar with this. For those of you that know Sandy Gorman, her house is to the right of it, or where she used to live, that's to the right.
We actually own that house too.
Oh, do you?
Well, we sold it just a few months ago,
Okay.
but yeah, we,
My question is with regard to that tree, because I just drove by there today, and whatever it is that he's building,
I
I
do
know
not
that there's a
wanna
tree
damage
issue
that.
there.
No, I'm not gonna mess with that tree.
Okay,
I want that to
and
stay.
I'll go ahead and jump ahead to part 2. I didn't do the math because I don't know that we have all the figures, but with the house, the new carport, and a 24 by 24 foot garage,
31%.
are we looking at the, okay.
31%. I checked
Okay.
the impervious.
Thank
and
you.
He's 31%.
But I am
yeah.
concerned
No,
about
no,
the tree.
good. Actually, I had the same question here about the tree, so I'm really
Okay.
glad to hear you're
Right.
gonna leave
Thank
that.
Absolutely.
And, he's at, what'd you have, 14,000 and change, and you're gonna be at about 4,000. That puts him at about, and that includes the, we checked on that, Pat,
Okay.
just so you know.
I think
he's
I was-
got,
If you would.
I
he's got
believe I'm
1,
like
2, 3.
15,000.
He's got four concrete pads. We included those in the impervious area. We included the home at 2432, the B project at 910, and the A project at 528. And at
Right.
4512, he's allowed up to like 6,000. Yeah, up to the 40%. The gravel, I did not include the gravel area.
That's covered, it's supposed to be included.
Gravel? Not gravel.
Gravel,
No,
the water
gravel is
goes through
impervious.
it.
It's not the impervious, it's the lot coverage is maximum 40%, which includes gravel driveways in the LDR, section 4-592.
Didn't cover the gravel, but I thought it referred to impervious area.
That's a different calculation.
Yeah, that's a different.
Anyway, I did the calculations as well, and I came up with an as is with no modifications, you stand at 34% with all, both project 1 and project 2 approved, you come up to 42%. Now, there were no calculations on the survey, so I just took the dimensions that were on
Right.
the survey, and
And that's
I
with the
did an
gravel.
approximation, but I think what the leaving out the gravel part is where we're gonna differ. Cause it's covered area, not impervious area, 40%.
Where are you, Mr. Robichaud?
4-5, 9.2.
Give us a second, Mr. Lynn, we're putting our collective
No
lower
problem.
brain together.
No problem.
Give me, where were you again, Jim? For where?
Section 4-5.9.2. Distance shall be, that's the wrong, sorry, that's the wrong one. It's, table 4-1. Which is on page,
4-15.
4-15. Max
Yeah.
lot coverage 40%.
With an asterisk. What does the asterisk mean? Ratio of impervious surface buildings. There you go, second page, it's impervious area. There it is. So there's an asterisk there, maximum lot coverage is 40%. Go to the next page. ratio of impervious surface, which includes buildings, driveways, but driveways, if it's gravel, it's not impervious, parking lots,
Well,
et
I agree
cetera.
it's not impervious.
I think we have always held to gravel is impervious because it allows the water runoff.
But I'd like to know that for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
not
it-
for sure, but in
it-
case I wanted to put asphalt or
We asterisked it right there. It
Okay.
says a maximum, there's
I
a,
stand corrected.
there's an
It doesn't-
asterisk there.
Okay.
And then if you go to the next page, it says ratio of impervious, and that's,
So, yeah, so gravel
but,
doesn't
hey,
count.
listen, it's always a good challenge. Thanks for bringing it up. What do you, did you hear all his questions?
yes.
What do you
The
think about
7.
those things? Did any of those things, you think you'd be in violation of any
I
of
don't
those
think
things?
so. I don't think so.
I'm looking for a motion on Project A.
I hereby move that we recommend the council approve a variance for Project A, which specifically is the 22 by 24 foot front garage.
I'll second that.
Very good. Madam Clerk, can we get a vote, please?
Yes.
This is for Project A now, Mr. Lynn.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hutto?
Yes.
Mr. Stryker?
Yes.
Mr. Robichaud?
Yes.
And Chairman Raga?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, I went out of order.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank
So
you.
we're good, and our recommendation is going to the council members on Project A for a yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And thanks for the public comment as well. We appreciate all that additional information. Now, let's talk about Project B.
Yes, sir.
Kind of give us a,
Basically, if you look at the plans, I've got a porch off the back of the house. And, you know, to do what I'm trying to do, I'm wanting to do a 2-story detached garage. So in the future, I could probably, possibly finish the top part for like my in-laws or, you know, family or friends come down to have somewhere separate to stay from inside the house. Not looking to rent it out or nothing like that. But to do that, I need this size of building. I've looked at making it smaller and, you know, all that, and I encroach on the water line if I make it longer.
let
And-
me hold you there.
Okay.
So is this attached to the primary structure?
Either I can attach it or I can leave it detached, and I have enough room. Isn't it 30 feet from the water line that I have to be off the back? You know,
That's on Lake Martin Only, I think.
This is Pitts Bayou.
It's
yeah,
nice.
pitch by.
They'll have to have a separation.
Is it, I looked for that, I couldn't find it, it only talked about,
Here's why you'd have to attach it.
Okay.
And we got a couple of issues here, but
Okay.
here's why you'd have to attach it. In the current LDRs, we do
Right.
not allow accessory dwelling structures.
Okay,
So if it's attached, it's the primary.
that's fine. I can attach it.
If it's detached, it violates
Right.
a pretty strong rule that. you
Can
know,
I
the
attach it
council
with a
members-
breezeway, or does it have to be structurally attached?
It's gotta be structurally attached. It's
Okay.
gotta be part of it. It's gotta be part of the foundation and everything. Gotta be considered part of the actual
Right.
primary structure.
I can have it designed to do that.
Okay.
Well, maybe you should wait to see his new design
Yeah.
before you.
Well, I mean, the dimensions would stay the same. It would just be, you know, I haven't presented any plans yet to get a permit. I wanted to follow, and the biggest thing is the distance from the property line of the easement of Ethlin
Yeah.
is.
See, here's the problem there now.
Mhm.
Once it becomes part of the principal structure, you gotta have a hardcore, now wait a minute, if that road is not open, that's still
Doesn't
considered a
matter,
road.
it's still a city right of
Okay,
way.
but it's a corner lot, so you gotta have 10 feet, you gotta have 10 feet from the property line on there. Right, am I
Yep.
accurate, guys?
so if you align to the corner of if the edge of the garage, if you rotated the garage 90 degrees and the edge was, coincident with the south.
Right.
East corner, southwest corner of the house, you'd have 12.
I think
17
it measures 18 feet or something now.
It's 17.88.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rear.
so you'd have 10 feet if you did that. Now that means you're gonna have to relocate your back door.
Yeah, I don't wanna do that. Yeah, I don't wanna do that. That's the biggest thing about it is, I wanted to try to let the building be part of the fence, you know,
Problem
And-
is you can't have, you cannot have an accessory structure that has human habitation. That's a hard.
well,
fact.
I can do away with that.
And you cannot use the structure as the property line,
Well, it'll be off of the property line.
a half a foot,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
If it's an accessory structure, you have to be 5 feet. And that's because, a couple of different things, drainage, that's about emergency access for
About
fire
7 feet.
trucks and,
It's 10 feet in this case, cause
It-
it's a corner lot.
but he's saying if he didn't inhabit, it would be
Yeah.
it would just be a garage. If,
Still has to have the setback.
but it'd be 5 feet because it would be considered an accessory structure at that point.
I don't believe there's a difference.
Between a
Wouldn't be
garage.
living in it.
And setbacks, I don't think there's a distinction made on setbacks, whether it's a.
There is. Go back to that same chart right here, and it says accessory
Line 2.
structures and carports, 5 foot is your side yard setback.
But,
Second one down.
but if he's a corner yard,
it's
it
on a
would be
corner.
10 feet again.
Oh, I stand corrected. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
1 to 1.
Yeah.
We don't keep score here.
No, actually, it's just a learning experience most of the time. You want to rethink this thing, knowing what you now know. These are, I mean, it can't be, if it's detached, it can't be a dwelling. Just because the council members felt very strong about not having,
Right.
you know, mother-in-law homes and, you know, secondary structures.
I
in
see them all
backyards
over,
and all that.
I'll see them all over.
That was old Parker, and those are what they refer to today as a legal non-conforming structure. Nobody's gonna make them take it down.
Right.
But you can't build it if it's brand new.
Right.
And, so, right now, being Jim's right, corner lot, so it's gotta be, the building's gotta be 10 feet, so it's worse than I thought it was. I thought it was gonna.
Well,
have to be 5
I understand
feet.
that on, if there was houses beside me, but it's an easement, you know, it's really a burden.
It's not an easement, it's a road right of way.
Right, but,
Even though it's not paved, it's still a road.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'd like to see somebody drive down it.
I get it.
The
Even if-
lawnmower can't even drive down it if you cut it.
Yeah, even if you didn't, though, I mean, you've gotta,
I
you
understand,
still gotta be 10 feet from your property line.
right,
And that's because, you know, if you got a wall there, you're still gonna have,
This is the 60.
you know, you're gonna have,
right.
water drainage and things like that. Well, I mean, and one other thing I'll just tell you is that if you look at that, right now it's showing 8 foot from your main structure.
Yes,
You would have to increase that to 10 feet.
yeah, and we got room to do that. That's-
Yeah.
We got 33 something feet from the, you know, from the back line to there, so I could bring it back another couple of feet
Yeah.
to get the 10 feet. But it doesn't help because I'm not gonna build it
Yeah.
in the back door, you know.
And again, when we rewrote these land development rules, and we did it with the council members, one of them, the mayor, happens to be a 30-plus year fire chief.
Right.
We had to consider things like emergency access, watershed onto
Absolutely.
another property, utilities, you know, that's what,
Yeah, the 10 foot wouldn't be a problem. It's the distance from the property line that's the problem.
So which 10 feet are we talking about? 10 feet from the?
From the house.
From the house?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, unfortunately.
We could get to there, but 10 feet from the property line, that's gonna push the building,
yeah,
you know, all the way past the middle of the house.
yeah.
Well, isn't a normal 2-car garage like somewhere in the 18 by 20 or 18 by 22?
Most vehicles.
More like 24. You're
Yeah.
right, though, cars are getting
mean,
smaller.
This just
It-
seems, I mean,
A brand new
Well,
home,
in my
a brand new
math,
home
that's
is in that
that's a pretty big
24.
garage
Yeah.
if you're parking a
Well,
window.
that's also a consideration is making the front garage 2-story, you know, and bringing it over the house and tying it in like that, kinda like a split level.
Yeah, and we've already approved that project, so, that's certainly an option for you.
I just
And
think
if
it
you do
would-
that, and you still wanna go ahead and, as long as we get that 10 feet on that building there,
Mhm.
and then 10, if you attach it to the principal home, and then you have that 10 feet, it'd be,
Yeah.
wouldn't even be a variance.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Lynn, I think, I just want you to know, I think we all approach this thing looking for ways to help people
I
with
appreciate
their
it.
projects. I mean, we approach everything that way.
Right.
How do we make this work? This one here, just, A's, we're good.
Yeah.
Council still has to vote on it, but,
Right.
but B, we gotta go back to the drawing board on that one.
What is the rear setback, the rear lot line?
20 feet.
It's 20 feet, so
Yes,
he's,
sir.
I'm 33 feet.
well, no, you're more than that. You're 33 feet to the seawall,
Yeah.
so I'm, 20 feet on a rear property line?
Yeah, front, rear, if it's a residential area, yes, sir. I'm looking right at, it's 20 feet to the front, 20 feet to the rear, and then corner lot, side of the building 10.
So there's no, okay, so let's say let's assume it's 20 feet, there's no additional setback required just because it's on pitch spot is my real question.
It's in terms of,
I think there may be, I would have to look at it.
So
Oh,
what I'm wondering is if there's any relief if he moves to just move, well, you're gonna have to move it east 10 feet, but you can move it south quite a ways.
Right.
which-
Well, that's why I was
which
saying
will
that.
free up your back door.
Right.
But not if he wants to use it for residential purposes.
Well, that
No,
can be
we
detached.
can squash that, as long as I got
Well,
a
your
garage.
idea about making number one
Right. Two-story and
two-story that
connect.
would be within the covenant, within the LDR, I'm pretty sure.
But, I don't wanna lose that tree, and I think if I make it taller out front, I may be getting in too far up in those tree
you
limbs.
can trim that tree.
Yeah.
You live in that property now?
We don't live there, but we're trying to. That's my goal in all this, is to sell where we live now and move down here.
Okay.
I'd like to be down
I
here
don't-
hanging out with y'all
From the
more.
looks of that tree, it doesn't look like it's a champion tree or a heritage tree or a historic tree. The only time that you couldn't prune that tree is if
Right.
it's one of those, you'd have to get
Right.
approval from the council members, even though it's your property. If it's
Right.
not one of those three, heritage, historical, or champion.
I don't believe it is.
Then ultimately, you have the right to.
Yeah, I can get it trimmed up, yes. All right.
Okay, very good. Mr. Lynn, thank you. I appreciate
Thank
all
you.
the
So can
discussion.
we-
So,
can
you're gonna
summarize?
table his, application,
Well,
waiting for
I
him
think,
to
I
submit
think
an-
he needs to rethink that building, that secondary building, because he could probably get an engineer to build something that would be legal, right? And then it'd have to come back, but it wouldn't come before us because it wouldn't require a variance. And the A project is already, we've approved it and we're gonna send it along to council with our
We've approved the
recommendations.
reduction to we have recommended an approval of the reduction to the setback requirement. That's all we've
Right.
done.
correct.
The project, will still involve a building permit and things
Right.
like that.
Right.
So that's summary of item one. Summary of
Yes.
item two is you need to rethink it.
Right. I don't
come up
think
with a
there's no
different
way
idea.
to, having to be 10 foot off of the easement or the road. I don't believe, it's feasible to do that. Not and have that structure directly behind the house.
Yeah.
But I may come up with something,
Yeah, I think your first idea about turning that front area into a second story is feasible,
Right.
giving you the room you need, and it's attached to the house, so you don't have to worry about a second, dwelling on the property.
And I could probably come right over the top of it and be the 10 foot off the property line
Oh, you've got plenty of
And-
room there.
and just have a garage around in the back, or have, space around in the back.
Yeah, your current property, the the closest it gets is almost 18 feet off the property line, so
Right.
you're fine there.
Right.
And that's to the side.
Okay.
Mr. Sloan, do we have to take a vote on the way
Well,
that?
if he wants to voluntarily withdraw his variance request, then there would be
For the
no
second
vote.
one, right?
For
the second one.
Okay, and there were two provided, right? One for A, one for B?
Right.
Or if we, okay, so we would handle this as A, and then B, A, we approve, B, we're voluntarily withdrawing?
Well,
Right.
he would have to voluntarily
I'll
withdraw.
volunteer.
Well, I'm just
Yeah.
acting. this
I'll
is
voluntarily
very good.
withdraw.
Yeah, give it some
withdraw.
thought. I mean, we're, as you can
Yeah.
see, we give this, trying to
I appreciate it too.
end up with
Thank
it.
you.
Thank
I
you,
got an
sir,
idea
appreciate that.
I'll share with you
Okay.
later.
All
Very
right.
good. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Lynn.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. You need to keep it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
I think you just sent me back what I sent you. I done some-
Okay. I think I heard
No,
Jim
I sent you back
saying
a new document.
that
What's it?
the next
It's a
item on the
read-only
agenda, he
document.
probably wants to push off.
I've got two Word documents, that's all, is attached. They both look like the same document.
No.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is
Oh, wait a
Mr. Robichaux.
Wait a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, the primary reason
mine's
for this
red.
I
discussion
found it.
is that right now the LDRs do not allow manufacturing facilities in any of the different land districts. And we thought that that may be antithetical to what we're trying to accomplish here. So Jim is putting together some ideas for us to allow certain types of manufacturing so that we can still grow the city.
And, okay, so I'm gonna ask your indulgence here. I did put together, per Mr. Sloan's very good suggestion of leaving the comp plan alone, trying to do this under the LDR only. I came up with a scheme to do it within the LDR, and it basically consists of modifying some definitions, moving some definitions around so they're all in the same place, and then adding some paragraphs to the LDR under commercial. However, I sent it to Mr. Sloan, and he has sent me back his comments, and I didn't realize they were waiting for me, and so I haven't had a chance to look at them yet. So I'd ask that we do a
Table it?
continuance on this.
Can I ask, maybe, and I appreciate all the work both of you have done on this, but one of the things you had requested is that we pitch you some ideas. So
Yes.
can we at least pitch ideas?
Sure.
Have them captured, and then we can have a little, and then next month we'll have a further discussion. Is that
All right.
okay? Everybody all right with that? You want me to start it off, or you guys have any thoughts about what he's got going on there? Okay. Well, I saw within last month's notes, Mr. Sloan felt that a simpler approach would be to allow certain types of businesses to operate in commercial land categories and work in definition of what is commercial. That sounds like a very solid recommendation. This would allow the comp plan to remain as is, develop a list as what is allowed and define what is not allowed. So it looks like the things that you've already put in here are really going down that pathway. The one thing that I might recommend is, so the first one's kind of straightforward. Wet or dry processes not generate waste that must be treated before release. I think Mr. Sloan had indicated that there are already regulations relating to what goes into the sewers. Second one was processes that emit no obnoxious odors. Now, I'm trying to eliminate any unintentional consequences as a result of anything we put forward here. So my question to the group is, should we define what an obnoxious odor is?
Some people think things are obnoxious that other people find.
You know, there might be a federal standard for that.
There is, and you know me, I researched it, so here it comes.
Save me some work.
It actually is an olfactory scale, believe it or not. It's actually dictated by the ASTM. Jim, you probably know, the American Standards for Testing of Materials. They use gas chromatography and also mass spectrometry, you know what that is, Bev, in order to determine what is obnoxious, okay? They regularly put butanol into the air, and that's how they get to what is obnoxious. okay, their recommendation is a level 2 is considered obnoxious. And a level 2 is essentially 75 parts per million of whatever it is that your olfactory zone is not liking. The Europeans use what they call an OUVM3. That's European odor units per cubic meter. Okay.
Smells
Now,
like cheese, right?
yes, it does. However, I think it may be necessary to put my recommendation is that we put some level of specificity in there.
Agreed.
Because you're exactly right. If we just say no obnoxious odors, which I think is, we all know what we're trying to get to, but somebody's going to ask us for a unit of measurement that we could prove that
Which
someday.
is a fair comeback, and we do need to be more specific, I agree.
Excellent.
So if you can give me that reference, I'll.
Absolutely. It's ASTM. Just go right to American Standards for Testing of Materials, and they will provide that same
Got a
information.
standard number?
Again, the U.S. uses 75 parts per million.
No, I mean, is there an ASTM number?
There was, and I didn't copy it, Jim. You know what? And I can't email it to you. Maybe I can email it to
I can
Donna,
find it.
and she can get it to you. Okay,
My
very
wife
good.
knows how to use a computer.
Very good. Now, the other thing is too, is I happened to go on vacation last month, and one of the things we did is we watched pottery being made. And I could see some guy wanting to open a pottery place
Way
here.
above 600 degrees.
Yeah, it's exactly right. So when you glaze pottery, guess what? You do it above 600 degrees. So are we wanting to be a little bit more specific? Again, we're trying to eliminate unintended consequences. Do we want some guy not being able to build, coffee cups and mugs and out of pottery? Because that would knock them out.
The answer is no.
Okay.
And that's I was kind of, I had corralled my thought processes into things that involve both temperature and pressure, which tend to be of a super industrial nature in most cases. And I didn't even think about pottery or glazing or glass blowing or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
Just something to think about. I mean, we're absolutely on the right track here, Jim. You're dead on. I mean, that is a way to essentially allow light manufacturing into the city so that we don't prevent all manufacturing from happening. I think it's a grand idea, and I think it's something we need to move forward with. Just those would be my two pieces of input based on what we've got so far.
Anybody else?
Yes, one of the questions I had, I couldn't find manufacturing mentioned anywhere in the LER.
It's in the definitions.
No, there's a definition in
It's
there.
industrial,
Well-
manufacturing's in industrial use, it's in the definitions.
I know it's in the definitions, but it doesn't say you can't, that it's excluded.
Well, you have to have an industrial district.
Or you have to modify your commercial district.
Actually,
Or you
Terry, I
have to-
think it does, my friend.
Yeah.
I think it does. Let me see, because I have, but you queued up another question
I
I've
just
got
did
for
my
Jim
little
here.
word search electronically.
I think it does. Let's take a peek. It's under prohibited uses.
Like you said, it's learning experience.
For
It's on
commercial.
page 217, I think.
Well, that's 217.
Here we
No.
go. It's page 4-6, section 4-6. If you look under prohibited uses, it's manufacturing/assembly plant.
But you also have, under your definition of commercial, which is where Mr. Robichaud was going with the change that he was proposing, he was changing number 21 under that
Yeah, under,
section on page 217.
217.
they have a definition for low-intensity commercial, which we don't, that phrase does not appear anywhere else in the LDR. But it's big time defined. And I was gonna change item 21 from inside assembly to, low-intensity commercial does not include manufacturing or manufacturing light.
Or maybe light manufacturing, but not including other manufacturing.
Or words to that effect, yes.
Well, you know what
Something
though,
like
but Mr. Sloan brings up, because I read that and it looked to me originally like we were trying to eliminate both. So I think, the way it was written, to me, of course,
Well,
So
no,
I-
the specific reason for that phrase was that if somebody says if somehow there's low intensity commercial in here and I didn't catch it, I wanna make sure that it doesn't include manufacturing of any kind. Low
Really
intensive commercial does not
really
include
good.
manufacturing.
Good point.
There
Great point.
is manufacturing light, which is an allowed which if we adopt this change would be an allowed use in certain commercial districts
Good point.
with restrictions, with caveats.
Excellent, yeah.
But I haven't had a chance to see Mr. Sloan's fine work yet, and I'd really like to
Now,
do that.
in looking for the prohibited use here, I came across the manufacturing/assembly plant. So we do, is it
where are
the
you,
intent?
Mr. Rowe?
I'm in prohibited uses, and this is in MU1. However, if you go to MU2 and then commercial, they always have a phrase there. We've had a phrase there that said, this includes everything in MU1, everything in MU2, and then you get to commercial, it's everything in MU1, MU2, including in commercial. So the question is just straightforward. Assembly plant is kind of broad. Do we need to strike that from the LDRs? Because assembly covers a lot of things, right?
Well, is it if somebody wants to pull an assembly plant together that meets these 5 process wickets, would that necessarily be objectionable?
No.
I mean, somebody wants to
Yeah, no,
assemble
yeah.
pacemakers.
But, okay.
So I think your point though, Mr. Chair, is that we probably need to look at that under
What page are we on?
4-6, under the prohibited uses in MU1. We need to look at that.
Only, and my thought is just that an assembly plant could be, the thing, for example, Jim, I'm gonna steal your.
So that's MU2, so. I mean,
Well, it's MU1, but as you go to MU2,
Yeah, I've got it.
there's always language that includes the prior districts as
And
well.
I did see that, and I thought I had cleverly eliminated that in the.
And you
change.
might have,
But I need
maybe
to
I
look at it
missed
again
it.
to make sure I did. So the intention was MU1, MU2, no manufacturing. Manufacturing light, maybe.
Yeah.
But right now, I think I wrote it to where it's only gonna be allowed in
Well,
commercial, not MU1 or MU2.
And my heartburn is with assembly plant, because that covers such a wide variety of types of businesses. I mean, if you assemble anything, a dowel, a sail, I'll steal your CB sail. If you assemble a sail for a sailboat, that's an assembly plant. They're sewing it and assembling
Okay,
it.
but right now, it's a prohibited use, so.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think we should probably strike assembly
Well, no.
plant.
Well,
No,
hold
because-
on.
Or revise it.
But what the proposal, the change I'm proposing is only commercial, not MU1 or MU2, so this would still stand.
Right,
Okay.
and there is no incorporation of prohibited uses in the commercial
Yeah,
section.
there was no section on prohibited
There's
uses.
only
If we wanted to- if
MU1
we
and
wanted-
MU2 incorporation of prohibition.
Okay.
And
I
think
get your
wanted
point.
to add one, didn't I?
You did.
Good deal.
But I think the brainstorming is what we need to do tonight, and then we'll
Yeah,
work
and,
on
and,
the language.
that's the point about pottery and great. Anybody else can think of a,
So that being said, it says here that manufacturing light except in CRA 1 sub area, provided the property has direct access to the state roads, blah, blah, blah. So if we're going to eliminate sub area 1 of the CRA, then if someone bought Bonnie's gas station because it closed and wanted to turn it into a pottery place, they could not.
that's true, if we use the CR1,
saying.
I put that down as a placeholder more than anything
Because
else.
I feel like the reason we're having this conversation has to do with a specific thing. And I think by us selecting not to select that area and be very particular on that, we are basically putting our thumb up to that or down to that. That's kind of a, we're gonna fix this, but we're gonna fix it for everything else, and what you wanna do or what could potentially have been, we're not.
I am ardently ambivalent as to whether we
No, I'm-
restrict
I'm
any of the
just saying,
CRAs
but I
from
mean,
from this. If
if-
it's commercial,
Yeah,
I'm
and the
fine with
CRA,
it. It's just
I
that
mean,
the entire thrust of our discussions recently has been in
Oh, I know, it's been that.
protecting this
But-
CRA one, sub-area one rather, for some future
Don't know
nirvana.
Whatever.
And if we don't wanna carry that forward,
Yeah.
I'd be perfectly happy
And
to
we
eliminate
still
that.
always have the variance option. If someone wants to build a structure that's outside of these rules, they can still request the variance. And then if it's unique and it's something we hadn't thought of, that's why we have that process, right? So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
My-
So what, you know,
My thing is that if we purposefully omit CRA one in doing all of this, there's already something on the table about that. I think we open up ourselves to potential issues.
These regulations should be independent of any particular possible application.
Right,
They can't be targeted at
No.
a business.
no,
yeah.
The only thing that I'm aware of that Mr. Robichaud was talking about relative to sub-area one had to do with access.
yeah, well, the road access and stuff,
But,
That's true, yeah.
but all other provisions that I saw from what you were proposing would apply across the board
Okay.
on
But if it was
any
a commercial
commercial land
piece-
use
yeah.
district.
If it's a commercial piece of property, then they want to do, I don't know, doll assembling or kiln manufacturing, you know, with pottery and stuff like that. You know,
Okay, I understand. So may I suggest that I take a look at Mr. Sloan's inputs
yeah.
and the rest of you guys' inputs, and I'll craft another version of this, and I will I'll get it approved in front of Mr. Sloan first, and then I will send out a one-way copy to the
To the clerk,
Sunshine
to
State.
the clerk,
who will then
who will then
distribute it.
distribute it to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
rest of the
Hey,
members.
Jim, thanks
Yeah.
for taking this project down. That's
I don't
huge.
have enough to do.
You don't have that, right? We
Thank you.
appreciate you doing
I
it.
just wander around the house aimlessly all day with a hammer and a screwdriver in my hand.
Right.
I'm
Looking for
sensitive to
something,
the
right?
fact that Donna's been here since 7:30 this morning, so I'll just ask Terry, anything you wanna add? Bev? Mr. Robichaud?
That's all I got.
Mr. Sloan, anything that we need to
No,
do to
sir.
stay out of jail?
Mr. Sloan, quick question.
Donna,
When
anything
will
from
the
you, hon?
council,
No, thank
I guess,
you.
Well,
look
thank
at
you
the
for
next
filling in.
planning
You're
board
welcome.
Really
members?
appreciate it.
No problem.
Will that be this
Ladies and
upcoming-
gentlemen, thank you for being interested in what we, are you wanting to come up?
Sorry, I had just a question. Jake Muirhead again.
Sure.
4407 Conifer Lane. I'm glad I stayed because I learned something tonight. I didn't realize that there had been a provision to the questions on a variance. I have the application has 5 questions. So is it possible to
need to get
get?
that up.
Yes,
Yeah.
excellent. The new is 7
Download the
questions.
LDR.
The new one's on the website?
It's on the website.
It's in the new LDR, and it's on
Okay,
page
that's all I
I'll
need
make
to
a
know.
note.
It's
I can do
six
that.
something.
6-12.
6-3.3, I think.
It's 7. It's
If you-
6-12, and there are 7
It's-
questions.
It's more resident friendly.
Okay.
All right.
And I
You're
think-
right.
and
It's
the
it's
conti-
That was
designed.
our goal.
The idea was you have to answer them yes to pass muster.
I believe that is correct. So when you read them, eliminate some of those double negatives which are in the question. Just read them, answer them honestly. But I think in your unique situation, as long as you're not in a flood zone again, I think that that should be a project that, probably
Okay.
something positive will happen with it.
Thank you. Yeah, those questions are kind of confusing.
They certainly are. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all being interested in what we do here. Meeting's over.
Preview, and you won't let me download it.
My question was
Appreciate it.
interesting anyway.